Okay, here we are.
Yeah. And then a bit more, maybe a little closer.
Yeah, the distortion there, you're the one that looks a lot closer.
Someday I'll...
If I move like here, now I get a little bigger. It's up to you how you want it. Oh, there you go.
That feels better.
Yeah.
That feels so much better.
Like, we're the same species now.
Yeah. I'm not like a gargantuan going out of nowhere. We are recording.
Hey, go ahead.
All right, so you want to tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm a painter. My name's Ali Malthus. Been doing artwork of sort of an imaginary nature ever since I was a kid. And I love the ocean, mostly because I happened to grow up by it in California in the 50s and 60s. So that became a big influence. And I've been living in Wisconsin now about 34 years, something like that.
When you meet someone new, do you tell them you're from California or Wisconsin?
I'm always from California.
Always from California, all right.
Little time on the Oregon coast. That's where I met my wife. We were starting a family there, and then we decided to move here to raise our kids. We have 3 daughters. They're all grown now. So I'm just carrying on doing artwork of ocean surf, drawings and paintings. And this continuing project in this part of the room is all about an island I call the Commonwealth of New Island in the Indian Ocean. And it originated from my paintings of different places. They were more or less imaginary beaches. And when people asked where are these places, first I didn't know. Oh, I don't know, a little South Africa or Ireland or someplace. Then I decided to just create a map and say they're all from this island in the Indian Ocean. Here it is on the map. Because I love maps too. And so that was like 25 years ago that started. So over the course of time I've printed up a regular road map, a guidebook, showing all about the history of the island.
And this isn't
Pictures
like just some road map you printed up. This is like the real deal.
Yeah.
It's like any other road map that you might get at a gas station somewhere.
That's the idea. Remember the old gas station road maps? Or at AAA. So this is...
Now, you did this by hand or on a computer? How did you
All
go
by
about
hand.
doing this?
All by hand. The artwork involved is a big watercolor, about twice the size of this map, that has all the colors. So I just painted the ocean and all these landforms on a watercolor. And then I used what they call an overlay, a big sheet of vellum tracing paper, laid that on top of the watercolor and pasted in all the names of the little towns, drew in all the roads and the railroads and anything that was black and white.
Like, you aren't kidding, like these roads, there's different types of roads.
Yeah, there's highways with numbers.
E15 has an oval around it,
Yep.
and 6 has a shield.
Right.
Like there's some crazy
county
detail.
roads and the whole island roads.
How did you know how to create a map like that? Is it just from seeing other maps and...
Seeing other maps, haunting the Barnes & Noble map shelves for a few years, and as a kid just being fascinated with maps. So at the time I decided I'd try to create that, I went down to Milwaukee, and this place called the Milwaukee Map Company was still creating road maps by hand, just before digital mapping took over. So they showed me, this is how you do it. You do an underlay, like a layout of the landform, and then you do an overlay or 2 or 3 to create all the graphics on top of it. So then it's real clean. And so I said, okay, 3 years later, finally had it done.
And you sell these?
Yeah, they're for sale for $10. They originated as a key to doing this show at the Neville Museum in Green Bay several years ago. So when people walked in, they would get a map, and then they would see all the imagery, and then they would figure out what part of the island it's from.
This island you created in the Indian Ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And so over the years, it's evolved very slowly. A few museum shows, and a few people have actually bought part of the island. There's a map showing property sites over here on the wall, where they buy their own little parcel and then design or give me ideas about a place they'd like to build on it, a beach house or up in the mountains. And then I'll do sketches and a painting of their house on their site, and it'll be on the map on the island.
Do you charge property taxes?
No,
No. This is the initial purchase.
the
home
maintenance
built
of the
site.
island is pretty cheap, so
Yeah.
I pass on the savings to the landowners.
And that's kind of, you know, one of these points is that there's a lot of details that you have that I think would have, I'm guessing, came over time. Like were they all in your head at once, or is this something
Everything
comes up?
Good question. It didn't all come at once. The first map was a crude little, looked like a big amoeba shaped thing in pencil. But then I thought, this is it. This is what I got to do. I got to do this place and this place and this place, because they had all these paintings that had a certain point of land or a bay or something visible, or like this painting of the lake up here, or the railroad train right behind you, with the mountain in the background. The train is running along this big bay called Putney Bay. That's Mount Hayes in the background. So these things are all part of the whole package, I guess you'd say.
And you have more than a map. You have a guidebook, but you also have a relocation packet for
Yeah,
folks coming through.
that was another guidebook and a package of forms you could fill out if you want to relocate on the island and claim property. I found out that never really worked because people just wouldn't sit down and do that on their own. It was kind of crazy. But if they see the show at the museum or wherever that I had it, then they'd say, oh yeah, this is great. How do I get property? And then I'm there usually and say, well, this is how you do it. You fill out this thing. Just pick a spot, pay me some money, and I create your house and so on.
And you've created this world, really, this island. This island has a community.
It has a history, pretty long history. That's what the guidebook's mostly about, is the culture and the history, what the people that live there do there, or what they might be doing. We don't know. A lot of it's kind of mysterious. And then that's been the way it's been, just kind of sitting there as this place you can look at, read about in the guidebook, open up the map, check it out. But there's not anything really gripping about that. It's like a geography lesson in a sense. So not too long ago, about a little over a year ago, a friend of mine said, well, you've got all these maps, you've got all these illustrations and this history and all this information about this place. Why don't you write a novel, a story that takes place there and pull it all together?
It seems like it's just like ready for the match.
Yeah.
You just have a lot of tinder that's just waiting for it.
It's like this.
You've named the bay that the train is going by, right?
And we know about the trains, where they go and where and all that, and where they and who put them, who installed them. There's a long history about all that. None of this just happened, boom, without any reason. So that's what's fascinating about history of any place is, how did we come here right now to Kaukauna? What started it? So you go way back. Okay, there was the river and the mills and all this, and other places have that same background. Everything had to happen, cause and effect, until you get to where you are now. So on the island, given where it was out in this lonely part of the Indian Ocean, most of the explorers who were claiming every piece of land they could find in the 1800s, 1700s missed it. But the Russians found it just by chance, and then they claimed it. And so there was this Russian influence for many, many years. That all ended when the Soviet Union collapsed, but that's another story. So the trains came from the Russians originally. They imported a lot of that stuff over the years.
So that's the tinder I'm talking about. Like, it's the kindling that's like ready to go. Like, it sounds like you have a lot of the story written already, but
really, I finally finished a draft, about 200 pages. So it's pretty chunky already.
All right.
But it's very raw. I've never written anything like this before. I've done guidebooks and nonfiction writing, but not a story about a kid, who has a weird dream, not necessarily a bad dream, but a weird dream, and he winds up washed ashore on the island, and the Russians catch him right away because he's American. It's 1964. It's the Cold War.
Now you've written the first 200 pages?
Well, I hope it's not much more than that. But yeah, I've written a draft that it seems to have a logical end at this point.
Okay.
So I said, okay, I'll write the end. But now I'm going back and reviewing And then I have to put some of these illustrations in it. The maps and just some of the places they hang out. So that'll be in the new book. The illustrations that are already in that one will be in this novel. So what I'm planning on doing is finishing it, and after I have a couple of people of what I've learned are called beta readers, read it through and tell me what they think, see if I can find any big red flags, or if they can. And then if it all looks good, send it out to an agent and see what happens.
I know I'm excited about it. I would imagine you have a lot of people who own your art, like have purchased some of these works, and understand what New Island is, that they would be excited about it too. There's already a New Island community, right? Like you have a website.
Yeah, it needs help, but it's there.
Yeah.
And the community is quite small. Those have actually bought property. I have a list. It's only about a page long.
But that's long. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they are the residents of the island. Some have property. Some just got their green card. This little
Quite literally a green card.
green card. So they can be on the island, without any challenges. So,
That's good. See, another thing I haven't seen before: stamps.
Oh yeah.
Postage stamps.
Yeah.
It's like there's like a rabbit hole that every time I visit with you, there's always something new, and there's always like another little bit of detail, and I love it.
Yeah, these are postcards of some of the sites on the island. Here's the Roger coin. So comes in a little package with an explanation.
That's a real coin.
It's a real coin.
That's a real coin.
Made of brass, but I've had a few silver ones made. You can put any metal you want when you order them.
Oh, that's. Do they come pre-worn, or
No,
has that been in your pocket?
It's been in my pocket about 5 years. So now it's getting worn down.
It makes it look like a real coin, which
Yeah.
it is a real coin.
Yeah. So this is the uncirculated version. It's still shiny and very clean. This one's, you probably in the coin collector's world say good.
Good.
Not
mint. Yeah.
Yeah, not mint, or there's a lot of levels of quality.
So a lot of what I do in these interviews is ask artists how they've made money with art, hoping to share it with other people who are looking to do something with their art. And I see a lot of these things, and so far what I've noticed is they're all for sale, right? Like you can buy one of these coins, right? And you can buy a set of these stamps and the book and the map and the book, hopefully, right? That you're working on right now.
New book, yeah.
And you've created this universe of items and objects and information and stories that all revolve around a lot of the paintings. And I'm not sure which one came first. Was it the ocean paintings that kind of led to New Island? Okay. And then some of those ocean paintings led to some of the island-specific paintings, right? And it's kind of, I would imagine, spread out from there with a lot of these ideas. Does this work? Is this successful? Do you make money at it?
That's a good question. It's successful in that I've had a good time working on it.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It's something I cannot not do.
Yeah.
It just took off when I first started drawing the first big map. I gotta finish this. So 3 years later, it didn't make a dime.
Yeah.
But I had to keep doing it. So in the meantime, I've been selling other paintings, like the ocean drawings over there, through galleries or occasionally on my website. And sometimes I'll do a Kickstarter campaign, which is how I got the book printed, was through a campaign that people would get artifacts about the island and so on in the book as a reward. So that's one way I've been making money. But as a steady income, it's really crazy. Because every now and then I'll sell something. Last winter was a good winter for the gallery sales I had down in this place in Mexico that sells my work. This year I haven't seen a thing yet. Maybe the political climate's a little weird. They have gas problems down there. Who knows? So I've been just thinking, okay, what am I going to do? I'm moving on in years. This has been sitting here waiting to be resolved. So my big push right now is to A, make a little money part-time teaching art. So I've been doing that, adult classes in high school. And then B, working on this new book that I hope to get out in the next 6-8 months, hopefully, and start moving it, see what happens to it.
When you say resolve, what do you mean?
Well, that's always been on my mind in the last few years. I've been doing all this artwork of this island, including the book and the artifacts and so on. And then, but how can I do something that would really pull people in to enjoy the island or get the idea of what it's all about? A lot of it's about loving, and a lot of it's about kindness, different ways of living that we're not seeing a whole lot of in the real world these days. So.
I think that my question around the products and selling them, is it successful? I think that was like, it came from a knee-jerk place, like wow, look at all these things that you've created, and I guess I'm kind of gobstruck, like jaw dropped at just how much you have and just every little which way it goes. And I think a lot of my curiosity was behind, like, where does it come from? How does it support itself? And I think that's probably the better question that I was looking for, is like how do you create all of this? Like, where does it come from, right?
Yeah.
And I think you answered it when you said that a lot of your sales come from your painting and your artworks, and that helps support these things that you have to create. So I guess I wanted to clarify that a little bit, because you're right, like success, like how do you define it, right? Like it's different for everybody, and it's different for every project. Like it might just be the creation of it is the success itself, right? Like to have these details that I would imagine are no longer in your head, or they're still in your head, but like to have them in reality and to have them in physical form, that for most things like art, I would imagine, is the success itself, is the creating it.
That is, but you have a point about the money thing, that how to sustain yourself as an artist, doing what you really want to do. And it's a big question, because I've been lucky. My wife, Vicki, works full-time, and she's very conscientious of the bills and managing money, and I'm not very good at that. So we have I feel blessed that she's there doing that part of it. She's helping to earn money. She likes to, she wants a nice house, and she wants this and that too. So she's doing it for herself, but also she sees, I think, a potential here, but it's been frustrating because it hasn't made a lot of money every single year. Some years back in the 90s were really good selling original artwork at art fairs, when you think about it, the street shows that we don't think a whole lot of these days, but they used to be real good. So there was a time that I could make a great living as an artist, and but it's different now. You can still do it, like with social media. There's a way to, create something, and then all of a sudden, if it takes off, people start sharing it all over the place, and then boom, you've got a really nice project there. And but also the internet floods the world with imagery very similar to mine, or even my own paintings I see coming back through online galleries that I have no idea how they got them, other than they're ripping them off.
They're just taking the pictures, or you think they own an original?
I don't know. I finally figured out that part of it was my own doing, licensing out images to a company that licensed them out to other companies. And they weren't all, they were sending me these reports, but I wasn't reading them. Then I'd see the other companies' offerings on, on Amazon and all that. Mothes print, framed up real nice and all this. So that's been a big challenge to get over. Is originally artists had a lot more control about their own images than they do now.
What I'm looking at is how do some of these really great works turn into money that support making more of these really great works? And galleries are a big one, art fairs, online kind of lately, and I think you touched on a couple of them with like Instagram and how Instagram can help share on social media.
I forgot about that.
And And you mentioned art fairs at one time were really productive. Would you say they're as productive now? Like, do people sell stuff at art fairs? Do you sell things at art fairs?
I used to up until 2 years ago.
Okay.
And art fairs are still, I think, worthy and still good for a lot of artists who do more crafty things. $50 items and less. Or they have a niche in something really elegant with jewelry, and they have a collector base that comes every year to the shows. I've seen that happen too. And so they're always selling their work. My paintings and originals tend to be a little too high for people off the street just making a decision on the fly. Oh yeah, I like it, I'll buy it. Whereas years ago, this was like very common for some reason. It was different then. So
what do you think's changed?
the people that were buying the bigger work in the 90s were established, they were making a lot of money, they were in the prime of their lives in their 40s and 50s, still expanding, building bigger houses. Then, this was my generation that were buying, all that changed and they started getting older and started selling off stuff and unloading things, giving them to dealers and or just even putting them in flea markets, because I've seen some of my work come back to me. Somebody bought something at a flea market for $20.
Oh wow.
Big frame original that cost probably $2,500
Oh, wow.
when the original people bought it. But they got old and somebody just didn't carry the ball and it wound up in a flea market and they bought it for 20 bucks. So he asked me, because my name's on it, are you the Ali Malthus that did this painting? And could you tell me how much it's worth? Yeah, stuff. Yeah, I did it. You found it in Fort Lauderdale, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah, things wander down to Florida a lot.
Yeah.
So that's another part of it. The demographics have changed. People's tastes have changed. They're more into, I think, practical things, sculpture, garden ornaments, just that would used to buy artwork at fairs. But there still is an art market in the world. It's the high-end galleries do pretty well, but it's almost at that level. People are doing more investing than actually appreciating. They want something they can get a return on when they pass it on. So that usually limits it to the real biggies out there, the artists.
Yeah. And like so many other things, like art or music or a lot of creative industry, there's just a lot of people doing it, and then only a few pop up to the top to become.
That's what's scary about this whole writing project, because I've been reading these books. Oh, write your novel, and you think you're going to sell it? Ha ha! There's all this kind of negative stuff about it. You have to be, like I think there's a 4% rule where 96% of authors submitting work get refused and 4% actually get something sold. Well, that's still 4%.
Yeah, yeah.
Better than 0.4 or something like that. So I really believe it's worth the time and the energy to do that, really, because it's completing a bigger project that's already done. Yeah.
And where do you, like, having the book and the story, which I'm sure won't be the end of it. There's going to be maybe more story or more book or maybe
people
a
have already
supplemental.
said, this is a series, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, we'll see. We'll get one done and see what happens. Yeah.
And your work and the maps and the books and the artwork. Where do you see it going? Like, how do you see it in a place living? Like, where do you see it living, I guess?
That's a good one. Up till, recently I've been just envisioning it being more open or available to the world through the novel. So, or the series or whatever comes next. And maybe it'd be made into a movie, who knows? So then there would be this whole other audience that would get off on it. So it would be this place to enjoy for a lot of people, and I would just kind of move off, off to the side. It wouldn't be mine anymore, but I would try to, hold on to not letting people do tacky things with it, And I've been reading about other authors who have gone that route and they've done well, or they've been frustrated, depending on who actually takes control and what they do with it. So I'm leaving it up to just getting it out there and then letting it go. That's kind of all I can think of.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
Hopefully it'll make enough money I can retire, you know.
yeah.
That's the idea.
What does the process feel like?
Hmm?
What is the process of creating it and getting it out there and letting it go? What does that feel like?
Oh, it feels, when I think about it, it feels good. You know, it's, letting go is you know,
Oh yeah.
um, a good thing all by itself sometimes. It's like all, you know, like I don't need more stuff anymore, just like we were talking about.
Yeah.
You know. I don't need more gear, I don't need more this or that or another house or anything like that. I just would like to complete what I've been doing and then let it go and simplify, basically.
Do you think you could stop creating things for New Island? Or you'd always have a notepad, maybe
Yeah.
jotting something down?
Well, the most thing I could think to create that would be anything new would be another story, taking off from maybe where this one's ends, or you know, a parallel story next to it. So that would probably be the big thing. As far as any more maps, I don't think I need any more maps.
Yeah.
I don't think I need any more imagery, other than if there's something directly connected to the story, because I've done a couple of new illustrations that will tie into it. A special little map of the oceans and this kid's route he takes that the raft goes on. It's a self-motivated raft, by the way. He doesn't have to paddle it or anything. It gets him there.
Sounds easy enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were talking about all the little things and details of New Island, and I just realized over your head are all of the sands that you have from the New Island beaches.
Well, these are sand from the real world. Well, here's a close-up of it. It's beach sand and gravelly sand and other sources, even a hotel cigarette urn sand once.
Oh, yeah.
It was clean.
Hopefully.
And then thinking about sand on New Island, well, sure, there are beaches in it. They would have sand too, so there's some sand samples
Yeah.
from the island. So it's just how much you want to take it, you know.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, you have that level of detail, and I that comes from some creative place that I would imagine is nonstop. It sounds like it might be.
Yeah,
And
it's weird because what do they call it? Interpolation is a term.
Okay.
Where you get one idea and maybe another one over here, and then you can interpolate or connect the two into a new idea. So the sand, oh yeah, there's sand all over the world. Every beach has sand. New Island has beaches. Okay, let's put some sand together.
Yeah, easy.
And then you just rattle off names. And speaking of names, naming all the towns and the creeks and the rivers, all of that was for some reason super fun. I don't know why, but part of it related to the history. Well, I know that Irish and English female convicts landed there in the 1790s, and they actually were the first to settle a place. So, okay, what names would they have called things given their background? So this city of Putney is a neighborhood in London, and other very British names pop up. And the Russians did their thing there, so they left a few Russian names. And there's a Japanese, almost a colony on the other end of the island. Some families settled it in the 1820s, and they have their names, their towns, very Japanese names, based on old towns they lived in where they grew up. So I was thinking, this would be fun. Okay, well, we'll name this whole coast the Japanese coast. It's where they live. And they kind of stick around. They don't travel all over the place and spread out. They like it where they are. But it's a treat to go there if you're on one of the walking paths, like this, I don't have it. Oh, yes, I do. Where's the map? Ta-da. This is the entire path system of the island.
And the walking paths.
Yeah, this is the same island as all the other maps. So these are the walking paths, and up this way are the Japanese settlements. And down here is the one big city, over here is the other big city. The railways connect those, but this one's just about walking. And I've realized that some countries like New Zealand have the same thing. The government actually maintains a path system all over the island, not just in the national parks. And
Wow.
in Britain too, it's the same way. Yeah. So that kind of energy I pick up on and say, yeah, let's do more walking paths so we're not burning the gas. Gasoline is extremely expensive.
I mean, it's an island nation,
Right.
Commonwealth.
They don't have any oil fields. They would have to import it. So they just don't even encourage cars. You have these pedicabs where you pedal them,
Mm-hmm.
and electric trains. All the railways are electric and all that. So there's other ways.
I wonder if you have any advice. If you have any advice for somebody who has a lot of ideas and maybe they're just starting to put them down on paper,
Mm-hmm.
or somebody who is like yourself who has a lot of ideas and they've created a lot of things and they're wondering like, what do I do with it?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a two-sided thing. If you depend on making something like that for your living, that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just exploring something new and it really feels important to you, if it feels good, if it just somehow drives your engine that you want to say this in your artwork, either if you're a singer or if you're a painter, whatever medium it is, if you really want to say it, then say it. And usually the money thing works itself out somehow. I don't know how else to say that. Well, an example is I teach high school art part-time at Appleton West High School. And the kids come in, a lot of them are just want to learn how to paint, they've never done it before. Others come in with these projects that they've been working on, like storyboards and character development for graphic novels. And they're really well along in it, and they're only 14. And I think, you're doing everything great already, stay with it. And so I just encourage them to do their projects, and I'll give them grades, instead of drag them out and, oh, I want you to do a landscape today because you'll learn something, or whatever, And so follow your passion, I guess, is the best thing I can think of.
That's great. Anything else you want to add? We've exhausted my list of questions.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I can't think of anything other than be patient, it'll all work out. It always seems to, one way or another.
It has no other recourse but to work out, huh?
Yeah, think abundance. Don't think scarcity. Think abundance. Because just having, feeling like, okay, I had a nice breakfast, now I have some time. I have 4 hours here. That's golden. You don't have any money, but if you have 4 hours and you're not starving, you can do something. And if you're doing something that's creative, then you're there. You don't need to worry too much. So I can.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for this interview.
Hey, you're welcome.
So cool. So
Yeah.
cool to share all of this.
Yeah.
And is there any plug you want to make? Your websites or anything else?
Well, I have two websites. You can go to www.oceansanddreams.com, or if you want to see my island project, go to www.newisland.net. Oceans and Dreams and New Island are one word.
Cool. And I'll share those links
Oh, sure.
online too.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, you're welcome.